Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here today. And, of course, it is open mic time. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, where we just talk about whatever it is you guys want to talk about, and talking about all the great things in film and television and all of our favorite things in the world, and that's just what we like to do around here. Now, normally what I like to do is to take some video and audio questions first that you guys have emailed into me. However, today we're just going to go all through live questions. So I need to cut today's show a little bit short because I've got a 50 Shades Freed screening I got to go to tonight. And I'm going to have to leave a little bit early for that. So we're just going to take all live questions. How do you get a live question on the show? Two ways to do it. One, use the super chat feature. It supports the channel, but it also guarantees that your question will get on. Or number two, roll the dice and send in a tweet. You can send a tweet to me simply at John Campea. I cannot guarantee I can get to, I definitely can't get to all the tweets, but I'll get to as many as I can, and I'll pick a few out, and we'll get that as well. So we're going to get things started with this. On the John Campea Show earlier today, there were 3 questions I didn't have time to get around to, so we're going to hit those 3 questions first. And those 3 questions that came in were from Anthony C., who wrote, ever watch the Stargate TV shows? I did watch the original Stargate. I was a fan of the original Stargate. Like, I wasn't a diehard gator or anything like that, but I did like the show. I liked it more when Richard Dean Anderson was actually the lead. When they switched over to that other guy being the lead and they made the Richard Dean Anderson character the general, I watched it less. I don't think I watched all of it. And then I watched a whole bunch of Atlantis, and I liked Atlantis. That's where that's where most of us first saw Jason Momoa, was on Stargate Atlantis before he became Aquaman. But I didn't see that they did that one show that lasted for 1 season. I didn't see that one. I saw a couple of the made-for-TV movies. They were pretty good. So I'm not a massive Stargate fan, but yeah, I watched a bunch of it, absolutely. Alan Gonzalez wrote, are the MCU movies going to be much must-watch classic? I don't know, like, it really all depends. If comic book movies aren't your thing, then no MCU movie, no DC movie for that sake is going to become a classic. But like Avengers, Winter Soldier, Civil War, I mean, these are movies that to me are classic, but not, I mean, they've made 18 movies so far. I believe it's 18 now with Black Panther. Certainly not all of them are classic, but a couple of them I consider they are. But will they ever be known as like any MCU movie has to be classic watching? No, it's not going to be to that point. Drinks on Me writes, what would John Campea, head of Marvel Studios, do with the second act of the universe? Keep old team, add some new characters, or wipe out the old team and build around the X-Men? Well, no, you don't build it around the X-Men. The X-Men, why wipe out one thing when you can have 2 things? Why replace one thing with another when you can have both and? It's not an either-or situation. It can be a both and. I think the best way to do it is much like how you would handle a sports team. You start to graduate out some of the older players, and you start bringing in younger players to learn from the older ones to carry the weight, and then they move on, and the younger ones become the veterans, and you bring in new. So what I would do is, yeah, I would move on from a couple of the original characters, keep a couple of the original characters around, and start slowly introducing new characters, which seems right now to be the pattern that Kevin Feige and Marvel is kind of adhering to right now. So they're very slowly bringing new characters, but slowly but surely new characters are being brought in. They're taking their time with it, and I believe you'll always see that be your pattern with Marvel. I don't think you're ever going to hit a point where, okay, it's not like what they're going to do with the Transformers animated movie. In the first 10 minutes, we kill all the original characters and bring in entirely new characters. I don't think you're ever going to see the MCU do that. It will always be a gradual progression of moving out some of the originals, moving in some new. Moving out some old ones, moving in some new ones, and just gradually build it that way. That's how I think they would do it. But that's just me. That's just how I would do it if it was me. Let me for a second now jump over to Twitter. Let's see what's going on Twitter before we move on to the super chat questions coming in here. Let's do this one here. This one's come to us from Eopane, who writes, John, are you going to discuss Tarantino now that more information is out there? Okay. I'll talk about this, and, you know, maybe I'll think differently about this later, but here's the thing. What Eopane is talking about is the fact that, you know, there was an interview done by Quentin Tarantino, I believe in 2003, okay? I believe in 2003, where Tarantino, so like 15 years ago, where Tarantino said some stupid, stupid things. Like just ignorant as hell things. And in case you didn't see it, it's been resurfaced now. People are bringing it up again. And what he said in this 2003 interview, it revolved around the Roman Polanski child rape case. And if you want to know what I think about the Roman Polanski child rape thing, just look up on YouTube, John Campea, Roman Polanski, and you will find my opinion on the Roman Polanski thing. Anyway, so Tarantino made some really ignorant remarks in 2003 about how, I don't think it was rape because it was a 13-year-old child. By law, that's rape. He gave her booze, gave her drugs, then sodomized her, and by law, that is child rape. And the kid said forever, the dude drugged me and raped me. And these facts weren't in dispute. He did that. I mean, he did that. Those aren't in dispute, those facts. The only thing that was being in dispute is about whether or not, it should be punishable. Anyway, so Tarantino, he's on, who's the biggest DJ in the world, like radio host? Why am I freezing on his name? The long-haired guy. Stern. That's right, Howard Stern. He was on the Howard Stern show. And this is, again, back in 2003. And they start talking about the Polanski situation. Stern says, oh, yeah, I think that's rape. I mean, it's a 13-year-old child. Of course it's rape. And Tarantino says, oh, I don't think it's rape. You know, those 13-year-old party girls, she was into it. Ignorant as hell. Ignorant as hell comments. All right? No doubt about it. No getting around it. Ignorant as hell. Here's the thing, though. And this is why I'm not jumping up and down on Quentin Tarantino over this, okay? Were his comments idiotic? Yes. Are they the comments of a dumbass? Yes. Are the comments ignorant as hell? Yes. Does somebody need to slap some sense into a dude who would say that? Yes. However, and this is the part, this is why I'm not jumping up and down on Quentin Tarantino now, why a lot of other people are talking about I'm not, is this wasn't a secret. This is the thing, why I don't think the public has a right to make a big deal out of what Quentin Tarantino said now. This isn't a case that Tarantino said this in secret and somebody recorded it and now it's coming to light that Tarantino would say something as stupid as that. This isn't that situation. He said this in 2003 publicly on the world's most popular radio show and nobody said anything about it. This isn't like this was some secret thing he said that they tried to cover up and bury and now it's come to light. That would be different. This is a situation where Quentin Tarantino said this on air on the world's most popular radio show with the world's most popular radio host, and he said it out. It was out there. This was public. This isn't new information. This is 15-year-old public information. And nobody jumped down his throat back then for it. I don't think what we as a society can do is retroactively, unless it's brand new information, and this is not brand new information. He said this publicly, on the airwaves, out for hundreds of thousands, millions of people to hear 15 years ago. And now we want to make an issue out of it? Now's the time to make an issue out of it? I don't think we have the right to make an issue out of it. This isn't new information. He said it 15 years ago. And again, there are some people trying to compare what Tarantino said to like Weinstein. Let's not cross lines here. Doing something like what Harvey Weinstein did versus saying something or thinking a certain way, no matter how dumbass, ignorant, and moronic it is, those are two different things. And I choose to believe that over the course of 15 years and over the course of lessons learned, that I would like to hope that Quentin Tarantino doesn't think that ignorantly anymore. I would like to hope that after 15 years and the way our society has been changing, and in light of a lot of recent events over the past year or so, that Quentin Tarantino isn't that ignorant. That he said that 15 years ago in 2003, open and public. And you want to know a good sign of the times have changed? Nobody gave... Look, if Quentin Tarantino got on the Howard Stern show today and said those words today, it's a career ender. It's beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is a career ender. But the fact of the matter is he said it 15 years ago and nobody said anything. Because the context of society has changed. Now, I go back, find my video on Roman Polanski. You'll always know what I thought about Roman Polanski and what he did and how the little piece of shit ran away and avoided going to getting jail time. You know what I think about it. But this wasn't hidden information. This wasn't secret information. This was public knowledge. And nobody said anything about it. And the only way we as a culture now could have the right to jump down his throat for what he said 15 years ago is if we also condemn ourselves for being an audience 15 years ago that didn't say anything about it then. We don't get to give ourselves a pass that, oh, he said something that ignorant and we didn't say anything about it. But it's okay. It's cool. It's cool that we didn't say anything about it. It's cool that we didn't hold him accountable then. And I don't mean he should have like lost his career or anything, but you know, it's cool that we didn't, you know, put this back on him, that we didn't make an issue out of this, that we didn't point out the wrongness of this thing. We don't get to give ourselves a pass now and act all righteous now when we didn't hold him accountable back then. Well, yeah, but now, John, we've evolved as a culture. We've evolved as a society over the last 15 years. We know better now that words like that aren't acceptable. Okay, if we're going to give ourselves that pass, we have to give the guy who made the comment that pass. And hope that today, 15 years later, he doesn't think of it that way. That he doesn't think that ignorantly. Look, there are some very good, wonderful people in the history of our society who were horrible racists. That was the culture. That was a society at a time. We've evolved. We've grown. We've come far as a culture. And we're able to recognize things now for what they are. There was a time when, hey, it was just cool that you could fire somebody from a job because they were gay. It was perfectly within the law. Hey, oh, you found somebody's gay in your company? You have the right to fire them just for the fact that you found out they're gay. And there were probably some very good, normal people who thought that way. But we've grown, we've evolved. We know that is ignorant as shit. We know that is stupid. We know that that is vile and evil. We've grown. But I'm just saying, if we as a society weren't going to jump down his throat when he said it publicly and openly, then we don't get to give ourselves a pass for that and yet now want to hold him accountable for it 15 years later. What he said was ignorant. If he still thinks that way, he's an ignorant dumbass. But I'm going to try to hope that he's grown and evolved, and maybe we can all grow and evolve. And I've spent way too much time on this. I know I have, but it is a really big issue that, look, let's be honest. It's an issue that's way beyond me and my limited mind and my ability to really process it all and express it all and all that kind of stuff. It's way beyond me. But it is a big thing, and a lot of people have been I've gotten dozens of emails and tweets from people today asking me to comment on the situation, and I just don't want to be misinterpreted or misrepresented. Because if I don't explain it thoroughly and repeat myself several times, you know what some people are going to do. Campea said there's nothing wrong with what Quentin Tarantino said. No, I said he's an ignorant dumbass. It was the stupidest thing in the world to say. All I'm saying is he said it openly and publicly 15 years ago. Why are we only making a big deal out of it now? Well, now we know better. Well, maybe he knows better now too. And if he said these comments today on the Howard Stern show, that's different. Then I'd say I'm done with Quentin Tarantino. I'm not going to watch his films anymore. I would probably say that if he said it today, but he said it 15 years ago. And if we as the audience have grown and evolved to now we realize how stupid the comments were, maybe he realizes too how stupid the comments were. So anyway, that's just that. Anyway, so sorry about that. Let's see. Let's go over to the super chat questions. I noticed a whole bunch of them have been piling up in there. Let's get started with this. We're going to start with Adam Griffin, who writes, why do talent agency signings like APA, CAA, UTA get so much coverage in the major trades? Is it just inside baseball, or is there a bigger impact? There actually is a bigger impact that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of movie deals, a lot of people don't know how much power these agencies have in Hollywood. They have a world of power in Hollywood. As a matter of fact, like sometimes movies get greenlit at these agencies as opposed to the studios. And there's this whole interconnected thing. And I remember finding out about all this, having some buddies of mine who are directors. And instead of like I won't say who, but this friend of mine who's a director was getting ready to do a big feature film. And I remember we were talking, it's like, okay, yeah, we just sent the script out to CAA. And they're going to propose some people should go. And it's like, so you would normally think, wait a minute. The agency is going to propose who should be in it? Shouldn't just people submit themselves as applicants and then you decide? Now they had to deal with CAA. CAA was going to put forward. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it always works, but these agencies have a lot more power in Hollywood than I think the average film fan realizes. So that's why inside trade magazines like The Hollywood Reporter and Variety do cover the agencies quite a bit and who goes back and forth. Because traditionally, their traditional readers are the inside baseball people, and it means a lot to them. So anyway, that's why the major trades will give agency signings and things like that a lot of coverage. All right. Mason Barr writes, preview for Tremor 6. I love Michael Gross, but come on, man. Also, my YouTube feed is flooding with Venom posters and preview tomorrow. Thoughts? Well, yeah, Tremor should have stopped after the first awesome one. The first Tremors was great. It should have stopped after that. And yes, Michael Gross is great. As far as the Venom thing, yeah, poster dropped. We're getting a trailer tomorrow. Honestly, other than Solo, which was a pretty good trailer outing. Other than Solo, I mean, this Venom trailer is so important. It's hard to imagine, other than Solo, a first trailer being so important because there are so many people who are just automatically skeptical about the Venom movie. Like, just automatically skeptical. This first trailer needs... Look, the first trailer is not going to win everybody over. No matter what they do in this trailer, it's not going to win everybody over. But what they need to do is start gaining some ground. What this first trailer has to do, because Venom is starting way behind the docks, man, because of so many people being so critical and so skeptical about this film just to begin with. This first trailer needs to get some of them on board. It doesn't need to get everybody on board. It doesn't need to win everybody over. But it needs to at least get a chunk of those people and get a chunk of the people on board with it. And then hopefully the next trailer can get more people on board. And hopefully by the time you get to the final trailer, the majority of people will be excited about the movie on board with it. So this first trailer has a tall order to fill. It doesn't have to win everybody over, but it's got to win a chunk of the audience over. At least 30% of them to start. And believe me, I'm just as curious. I have no idea what we're going to get in this Venom trailer tomorrow, man. I have no idea. I am just as curious and excited as you guys, but we'll have to see how that all turns out. Fleece Flilliams writes, record TV Super Bowl, 114 million, World Cup, 1 billion. Well, yes and no. Your number's a little bit skewed. The TV views for the Super Bowl at 114 million, I believe that's just in the United States. If I'm not mistaken, it could be, but that's just the United States. The worldwide numbers for the Super Bowl are actually significantly higher. World Cup, 1 billion. Yes, but World Cup's once every 4 years. It's not an annual thing. So, I mean, this is probably coming from the fact that I talked about, like, in 2017, like, the Oscars was the most watched non-sporting event television broadcast in the world. And it significantly beat out Game 7 of the World Series. The only television broadcasts that beat the Oscars was the NFL championship games. That's it. It's the only thing that beat it. Now, you can bring up World Cup, as in everybody always wants to bring up World Cup whenever this issue comes up, but the World Cup's only once every 4 years. I mean, the Olympics will also probably outdo the Oscars, but again, we're talking about once every 4-year events, so that doesn't really fit into the paradigm of what I'm talking about. But yes, a whole ton of people watch the World Cup. One less this year because Italy didn't make it, so there's that. Micah T writes, do you think because of advances in visual effects, certain movies could work now that didn't work before? I want another try at a live-action Scooby-Doo movie, but that's probably just me. Well, I don't know that there are a lot of people waiting, lining up for a Scooby-Doo movie, but I mean, Supernatural is doing a Scooby-Doo episode. Did you guys? I talked about this, I think, last week. But Supernatural, they're calling the episode Scooby-Natural. Supernatural has an animated episode coming out where the Winchester boys team up with Scooby-Doo. I'm beyond excited about it, but I'm not interested in a Scooby-Doo movie, per se. But maybe there'll be some other people. But yeah, whenever we get new technology, it opens up the possibilities. Like, for example, Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. That's a movie that 8 years ago could not have even been attempted, and yet they could make it today. I remember George Lucas said when he made the prequels, it's because now we have the technology to do it. And I think we're always going to hit those plateaus. I don't know if we've hit a significant plateau in a while, but I'm sure at some point, like once that uncanny valley that you just can't do human characters right. Human characters still just look wrong. That will be the next big breakthrough in visual effects, I think. And then maybe then we can talk about new movies that couldn't be done before, could be done now. But right now, it's hard to imagine a movie that you couldn't do now with today's existing technology. It feels like you can do just about anything today, except realistic, believable human character animation. That's still something, the holy grail, they haven't been able to nail down yet. Timothy West writes, may I recommend the anime Steins Gate? It's like Donnie Darko mixed with a good version of Big Bang Theory, and Project Almanac also has good English dubbing. All right, this is one of the great things I love about this show, is that I get people sometimes recommending things to me that has never been on my radar, and Steins Gate has never been on my radar, and now it is, and now it's on yours too. Thanks for the recommendation, Timothy. Appreciate that. Luke1234 writes, do you think Batman takes steroids? No, Batman seems pretty pure. I think Batman's straight edge, man. I do. Okay, he drinks a lot. But other than that, I think Batman is pretty straight edge. So no, I don't think he takes any steroids. Let's see. Aussie Nerd writes, the Death Star as a name sounds evil. If you were working for the Empire's public relations, what would you call it? But remember that conversation at that leadership table with Governor Tarkin. The whole purpose of the Death Star was to instill fear. Fear, because remember, the Emperor was dissolving the Senate. The guy asked Tarkin, well, how will the Emperor maintain control of the local systems without the bureaucracy? Tarkin says, fear. Fear will keep the local systems in line. Fear of this battle station. So the whole purpose of the Death Star was not just to be another military weapon for the great empire. No, it was a tool of fear. So yes, the Death Star sounds like a very evil name, but that was kind of by design because it was meant to instill fear to keep the systems in line. Good question, Ozzy. Anthony C. writes, TV show you can watch through multiple times. The Office, Parks and Rec, and Seinfeld. I mean, those are three shows. It's funny. There's a lot of drama shows I would put over those comedies as my favorite shows, but I can only watch them so many times. Whereas like a good episode of The Office, I can watch 50 times. A good episode of Parks and Rec, I can watch 50 times. The Master of Your Own Domain episode of Seinfeld, I can watch 50 times. So, but the ones I can definitely watch over, those are the three types of shows I can just watch. I can just go to bed, put those episodes on, put those shows on repeat, and never get tired of it. Timothy West writes, a bounty hunter movie in the vein of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, that has Boba Fett in Clint's role, but keeps his life post-Clone Wars a mystery, and has him competing against Cad Bane. Not interested. Not interested. I'm sure there will be some people out there that would be interested. I don't want any movie that focuses on Boba Fett, one of the coolest characters in the Star Wars universe, because he's completely shrouded in mystery. Now focusing and keeping the camera on him too long, I think underwhelms that. I'm not interested in any more films that happen between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I'm not interested. Doing the Cad Bane thing is a little bit inside baseball for Star Wars fans, so I don't think that would work on a large scale. But believe me, Timothy, you're not alone. There are a lot of people who would like to see a Boba Fett movie. I am just honestly not one of them. I do not want to see a Boba Fett movie. I'm a big fan of the character, but I really fear doing a film focused on him, with him at the center of it, is really going to devalue the character. Plus, I'm just tired of these prequel movies. Can we just move forward? Can we just tell new stories with characters we haven't seen before? Must we go back to every single character that we've been exposed to in the original trilogy? And like I said, Timothy, lots of people will agree with you. Absolutely. There's a lot of people right now watching this broadcast that are screaming at the computer saying, Campea, we want a Boba Fett movie. That's great. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just saying, for me, it's no bueno. It's just not something I'm interested in. HV3 9000 writes, "Hey John, big fan and Patreon supporter here." Well, thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. You keep the lights on around here. I appreciate that. "What is the name of your book that you wrote again? I want to check it out." Oh, okay. Let me just grab something here and bring it over here. Yeah, the name, I wrote a novel a couple years ago now. Did much better than I thought. It is called The Pride. And there's the cover of it. And it's a story that takes place, it's a little bit of, the way I would describe The Pride is that it's a little bit of Highlander, the TV series, where it goes back and forth telling the story between different time periods. But the lion's share of it takes place in modern day Los Angeles with a pride of dragons that exist in secret. And I won't go into it much more than that. But, I had never written a novel. I'm not a novelist, I'm not a writer. Much like I made a film, even though I'm not a filmmaker per se. But I just wanted to do it because it took me 5 years to do it. But I wanted to do it because a lot of people always talk about one of the things they want to do in their life is write a novel. So you know what? I did it. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm the great novelist and I'm a great writer. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that. I just had a story I wanted to tell. Everybody talks about wanting. So many people like to talk about, I'm going to write a book someday. So I decided, you know what? Screw it. I'm actually going to do it. So I just kind of made myself do it. And I love the book, personally. Not for everybody. I'm not the best writer in the world, but I love my story that I came up with. And check it out. It's available on Amazon. You can just get it digitally for your Kindle or whatever, or your tablet, and you can find it there. Thank you so much for asking about it. I appreciate that. Let's see. Go on to Tony Bush. And Tony Bush writes, The Hollywood Reporter round, the interviewer starts by asking questions in a circle. Once he gets to Mary J., he intentionally skips her and keeps going. At 7:30, Chastain gets uneasy and begins interviewing her herself. Have not seen it. That sounds awkward. That sounds like an interviewer is something the interviewer is really going to be embarrassed about. Hopefully it was just an oversight and a mistake. I remember not long ago, Tony, there was a similar incident in Los Angeles. It was a press junket, and I think it was the Avengers Age of Ultron press junket. And an interviewer, that's right, that's what it was. Okay, so an interviewer for a local Los Angeles TV station. You can find this on YouTube. You can look this up. Your situation you're mentioning, Tony, here reminds me of this. So it was this interviewer whose turn it was to interview Samuel L. Jackson. And he starts talking to Samuel L. Jackson, and it became obvious that the interviewer thought Samuel L. Jackson was Lawrence Fishburne in the Matrix films. And Samuel L. Jackson was, wait, do you think I'm Lawrence Fishburne? Like, you're confusing me with Lawrence Fishburne? Why? Because I'm black? It was no harm intended. He didn't mean to be offensive, right? The guy but it's just, oh my God, I just felt so bad for that TV interviewer. And look, Sam Jackson had every right to jump down his throat for it. Absolutely he did. I just felt so bad for that interview. It's like, oh my God, dude, you do this for a living. You do this for a living. And how embarrassing. So the situation you're describing to me, like, I haven't seen it, so maybe it's very, very different, but it sounds to me, hopefully it was just an oversight and a mistake and nobody was trying to snub and leaving Mary J out of the conversation. But oh my God, if you want to feel uncomfortable, look up the Samuel L. Jackson mistaken for Lawrence Fishburne interview. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I'm sure you can find it, but it is one of the most cripplingly awkward moments that you've ever seen. I just felt bad. I felt bad that Samuel L. Jackson was put in that situation. I felt bad for this guy making a mistake like that. I felt bad for the viewers. I felt bad for the TV station. It was just an awful situation. Anyway, thank you for reminding me of that. Anthony Montes writes, "Hey John, been happily following all your work since April 2013. I'll never forget the 24-hour AMC Movie Talk live stream." Oh, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Will you create videos content whenever you move back to Canada? Yes. I mean, one of the great things about leaving my corporate overlords, and I've worked for some great corporate overlords, but it's still working for corporate overlords. One of the great things about leaving that was to give myself the flexibility that should I choose well, number one, if I choose to ask Anne if we can move back to Canada when we're ready to move to Canada, that I'm free to do so. As a matter of fact, look, I'll tell you right now, this is inside baseball stuff, but whatever. But, you know, Anne works for Hasbro. Their head office is in Pawtucket, or Pawtucket, however you pronounce it. It's in Rhode Island, right beside Boston, Massachusetts. And, you know, her boss has told her, hey, if you want to, because Anne's a senior person, if you want to move out here to the East Coast and do the job out here, you can do that. And before, that was never an option because my job is here, right? Being able to, now doing my stuff from home, in my little home studio, it offers me that flexibility. And so who knows, maybe in a year, maybe in 6 months, maybe Anne and I uproot and move out of LA and we go to the East Coast. It would be great for me because it's just an hour flight away from my family. Like here, I'm a 5.5 hour flight away from my family. In Boston, I could be like a six hour drive. Boom, I could hop in the car, go see my mom if I want. And believe you me, I miss my mom. I miss my mom and dad and my siblings. I'm actually going to get choked up if I don't stop talking about this. So anyway, there's that. But so yes, if I do move to the East Coast, if Anne and I move back to Canada, which we will do eventually, then yep, I'm going to continue doing my thing because now I just do it myself from home. So I have the flexibility to do that. So yes, I will do that. Thanks a lot, Anthony. Never get an Italian-Canadian kid talking about his mom. It's bad. Anthony C. writes, why is Star Wars more popular than Star Trek? Look, that's a 3-hour expose that I could do. I am a fan of Star Trek and Star Wars. So I would say, from my own point of view, just by my opinion, why is Star Trek more popular than Star Trek, or why is Star Wars more popular than Star Trek? Because it's much better. I know a lot of you are screaming at me now. I'm not saying you should think that. I'm just giving my honest opinion. Even though I'm a fan of Star Trek, to me, Star Wars is better. It's just a lot better. But that's just me. I'm not trying to convince any of you otherwise. Right now, my buddy Scott Manson, Robert Meyer Burnett are screaming at their computer monitors as people share this link. Did you hear what Campea just said? Anyway, Jay Vardy writes, it's been over 20 years since Robin has been in a Batman movie on the big screen. If Marvel can make a talking raccoon work, DC can do Robin. It's time. Well, look, it all depends on how you do Robin. If you want to do Robin as a 13-year-old child with a stick, then no. No. You can't do that. Batman, the movie version of Batman would not bring a 13-year-old child into a fight with a stick in his hand against mobsters with guns and machine guns and grenades and things like that. That would be child abuse. Actually, there's a legal definition from that. It's called child abuse if you do that. Now, what I always get when I talk about the Robin situation, people go, well, John, you like, what's the name of the damn, why am I freezing on the you like Kick-Ass, and you like Hit Girl and Kick-Ass. Hit Girl was a 12-year-old child. How come it can work there and not for Robin? Because Kick-Ass is a sarcastic spoof comedy. It's not meant to be taken, it's meant to be a sarcastic spoof, silly, ridiculous, nonsensical comedy. And it's awesome on that level. And if you want to make a Batman and Robin movie as a silly, stupid, sarcastic, satirical comedy, then fine, Robin can work great. Otherwise, no. So, what I am okay with, though, as a fan, and I'm not saying it doesn't work in the comic books, and I'm not saying it doesn't work in the cartoons, but a live-action motion picture in the existing DCEU, that's a different story. What I would be okay with is if you get away from the traditional Robin and say Robin is a 21-year-old, 22-year-old man. Maybe he was Bruce Wayne's ward at one point. Maybe Bruce Wayne just trained him his whole life, and then upon becoming an adult, 20 years old or 21, he goes out and starts fighting crime in the streets too. If you want to do that, then I'm totally fine with it. That can work, and you can still call it Robin, or you can call him Nightwing, or you can do whatever. That works to me. Otherwise, the traditional manifestation of the Robin character, a 9-year-old child, an 11-year-old child, a 13-year-old child with a metal stick. That to me is not something that works in the DCEU. Doesn't work. I'll still stand by that. I'm not hating on the character. I love the Robin character. I know more about the Robin character than you do. Well, at least most of you, at any rate. I love the Robin character, but I also know he works right in certain circumstances and in certain mediums, and not as he is in certain other mediums, right? Like, I love plain vanilla ice cream. I love it, but there are certain events that you don't serve that. So anyway, that's just me. Look, it doesn't matter how I try to explain it. There are people who are going to hate me because people are just going to say, John's shit-talking on Robin. And no, I'm not shit-talking on Robin, but people are going to say it anyway. So there's no point in me trying to explain it more. Ben Rayner writes, do you like the Venom poster? Well, I mean, for a first poster, yes. I don't have one kicking around on my computer here. Let me just see if I can find one quick. Just for those of you who have not seen it yet. Okay, here we go. Let me see if I can bring this in here. The Venom poster came out, and so we see it here. Let's put it this way. For a first poster, it's pretty good. I mean, it's Venom. It's the iconic image of the eyes and stuff like that. It works. So on that level, yeah, it's fine. If this was like the final theatrical poster, I'd go, come on, you can put a little bit more into it than that. But as just a first image that kind of just announces that tomorrow the first trailer is coming, yeah, I'm on board with it, sure. As an announcement poster that's just paving the way for the trailer, I'm totally cool with it. Because there's no misunderstanding what this is. You look at this, you instantly know what property we're talking about. That's a Venom poster for sure. And that's great. Actually, if this was the final theatrical poster, I'd have a different opinion. Let's see. We go on now to Maybe One Name writes, thoughts on Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was fun, and I thought it was funny. A great little spoof comedy. And not one of the best ones I've ever seen, but it was entertaining. I enjoyed it. I laughed a lot in it. Let's see. I Am Blue writes, thoughts on TCL Chinese IMAX, seeing Black Panther there. Well, yeah, what used to just be called the Chinese Theater, and people in Hollywood still just call it the Chinese Theater. Classic theater. It's where Star Wars premiered. It's like the most iconic, maybe the most iconic movie theater in the world. And it was retroed. It was retrofitted. It was kind of rebuilt interiorly. And it's now the TCL Chinese IMAX. And it's a great theater. It's a great theater. I saw the Star Wars The Force Awakens world premiere in that theater. It's a wonderful theater, great viewing experience. And I'm a little bit jealous you get to see Black Panther for the first time on it. That's great. HV39000 writes, what the one movie you own in your movie collection that you think nobody else has? For me, it's The Wizard, starring Fred Savage. My wife loves that movie, by the way. She loves The Wizard. Megaforce. Nobody else has Megaforce. I have Megaforce. Life is like a wheel. It all comes around. That's the one I have that I'm pretty sure most of you guys, 99% of you, do not have that one. So that's one I'll go with because I'm one of the only idiots in the world that really loves that movie. Fox Mulder writes, didn't like The Last Jedi overall, but I'm a big Rey fan and enjoyed the Rey/Kylo stuff. So sick of people calling her Mary Sue. Well, again, look, if people don't like Rey, that's fine. I have no problem with people liking Rey or not liking Rey. No skin off my nose. The one thing I do take exception to is saying Rey is a Mary Sue. Because that tells me one of two things. Number one, they don't actually know what a Mary Sue is. Or number two, they don't actually know anything about the movie. Because if you actually understood the character and you watched the movie, you would see that this character is the farthest thing from a Mary Sue. You might as well come out and say, I didn't like Rey because she had 6 arms. Well, okay. You don't like her, that's fine, but you were actually factually incorrect saying she had 6 arms. She actually did not have 6 arms. No, I saw the movie and she had 6 arms. No, this isn't a matter of opinion. You are actually factually wrong here. She did not have 6 arms. That's how I feel like when people try to say Rey was a Mary Sue. I have no problem with them having any issues with her other issues, but saying she's a Mary Sue is, I don't know, saying that Jackie Chan is Puerto Rican. I mean, it's just like, wait, no, he's not. You either don't understand who and what Jackie Chan is, or you don't understand who and what a Puerto Rican is, because Jackie Chan is not a Puerto Rican. I mean, it's fine if he was, but he's not. And so that's just the feeling I get when people try to say that Rey is a Mary Sue. It's like, okay, you either just don't know what a Mary Sue is, or you have no idea about what the movie is and what this character is, because this character is the furthest thing from a Mary Sue, if you actually watch the movie. But anyway, that's just my part in that. Jay Vardy writes, what are your favorite versions of Star Trek? Mine are the original series, Voyager, Next Generation, and JJ-verse. Which ones are not your favorites? You didn't mention, you didn't mention Deep Space Nine. My favorite incarnation, and I really, really, look, I love the original cast, and I'm really liking Star Trek Discovery. I mean, to me, that's one of my biggest pleasant surprises of the year, because I thought that show was going to be garbage, and I am really digging it. I'm liking it a lot. But I think Next Generation is probably my favorite. Next Generation is probably my favorite overall. Certainly a ton about the original cast stuff that is primo. There's even some Voyager episodes are great. Some Deep Space Nine storylines were quite strong as well. But, I'm going to go Next Generation. Anthony Montes writes, I put George Lucas and the Wachowskis in the same category. Great filmmakers as long as they have limitations. Too much control and things don't go too well. I mean, and that was one of the big things. Look, everybody knows I worship at the altar of George Lucas, but one of the shortcomings he had, and one of the things that really kind of came back to bite him in the ass, was that he was completely in charge and had nobody that could say no to him. And I think we saw in the prequel era, when he was he was the money guy, he was the producer, he was the studio, he was the production company, he was the director, he was the writer. There was nobody who had any authority at all to challenge George. And see, filmmaking is at its best, even with the best directors, filmmaking is at its best when it's collaborative. That's why you hear about guys like, Ben Affleck is known to be a very collaborative director. He really likes to take the input of the people, of the professionals he works with. He likes to hear from his cinematographer. He likes to listen to his writers. He likes to listen to his producers. He likes to listen to his actors. It's ultimately still his decision as the filmmaker, but he's very collaborative. George Lucas, not so much. George Lucas was just, George says something, everybody just needs to jump and make it happen, even if they knew it was a bad idea. And so I will agree with you. George is a great storyteller, but he needed some checks and balances, I think, would have made things even better. Maybe One Name writes, I'm going to start saying it's not like we're trying to remove a mustache all the time now. Like, wow, these boxes are heavy, but hey, at least we're not trying to remove the mustache. Of course, Maybe One Name making a reference to the Deadpool trailer that came out. What a great line. What a great line. I mentioned this before, but it's true. Ryan Reynolds just has his fingers on the pulse of this demographic. Those of us who really love the comic book movies and who talk about things online, Ryan Reynolds has his fingers on our pulse. And he knew that line would not just be funny, but he knew that line would strike a chord with us and really make us laugh. And it was a great line in the trailer. Just a great line in the trailer. Alan Gonzalez writes, what I meant about the MCU was it was as a whole because no other movies have this continuity. Well, I mean, I still don't think that makes it a classic per se, Alan. I think it makes it very unique that you literally have an 18-film universe that nothing else like that, other than maybe the James Bond films, but nothing else like it has ever really been done. We have this many different franchises all connected into one shared cinematic universe to the tune of, I believe Black Panther is the 18th film. I could be off by that, but it's around 18. So it is definitely the most unique, and it's important, and it's a milestone, but I don't know that that makes it a classic per se. So maybe we're just playing semantics at this point, but valid point. Valid point, Alan. Bomb Squad writes, have you seen I, Tonya? If so, what do you think? Loved I, Tonya. And Allison Janney, she has been winning most of the awards for Best Supporting Actress, and she's going to win the Oscar. She totally deserves it. She was incredible in I, Tonya. Margot Robbie, if you had any doubts about how good of an actress Margot Robbie is, watch I, Tonya. She's great. I thought it was a wonderful film. Maybe a little bit long. It could have been shortened up a bit, but overall, very, very enjoyable film. I knew it was going to get a lot of awards buzz when I saw it. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check out I, Tonya. Isaac Torres writes, have you seen Kung Fury? It's a short film on YouTube. I personally think it's hilarious. Love letter to the 80s action. Keep bringing the filthy man. Dude, yeah, it came out a long time ago. Like years ago, Kung Fury came out. And I remember watching that, and I got a chuckle out of it. I didn't think it was the world-altering must-see video on YouTube at the time, but I got a kick out of it. But no, it achieved like a cult status almost instantly when it first came out. And you're absolutely right. It was composed like a love letter to the action films of the 80s, for sure it is. And I would encourage everybody to check it out. It's on YouTube. Go check it out if you haven't seen Kung Fury. I think you'll get a kick out of it too. Thanks for bringing it up, Torres. All right. HV39000 writes, are you looking forward to the Winter Olympics? What are your favorite sports to watch? For me, it's curling and ski jumping. I get a kick out of watching the ski jumping. I really do. I mean, it used to be for me that the big thing I would watch for at the Olympics was the hockey. But now the NHL players aren't being allowed to go and participate and play for their countries. And to me, that takes a lot of wind out of my sails. Like, don't get me wrong, I'll still watch the games and I'll be cheering for Team Canada, just like I was screaming my head off at the World Juniors this winter. I was so proud of our Team Canada winning again. But yeah, I got to admit, some of my enthusiasm for the Winter Olympics has been sapped out a little bit just because the players aren't going to be there. Oh my gosh, guys, I totally forgot to mention, no more, please don't send in any more super chats. I'm running out of time. All right, Spencer Clark writes, have you kept up with Better Call Saul? It's a show that's only getting better in my opinion. Season 3 was some of the best TV I've ever seen. Nope, have not caught up with it at all. I need to binge like hell on that show. I'm hearing nothing but great things about it. And I'll admit it, I avoided it at first because I just thought it looked like it would be a cheap knockoff. But everybody says it is high quality television, so I'm definitely going to be checking it out. Chris Martin writes, do you miss anything about working for AMC or Collider? The only thing I miss really is, being able to work with some of the people. And, there are certain people there that I really consider good friends that, I got to on a daily basis interact with and work with. That part was great. I love that part. As far as anything else goes, no, not really. Not compared to being able to do it on my own, not be responsible for anybody and not be responsible to anybody, to just do my own thing and not have to put up with a lot of the bullshit that goes along with working in a corporation. And believe me, there was a lot of bullshit to deal with. As there is in any corporation. I mean, any place where you got to work and stuff like that, there is. That's natural. That's part of work. And that's not a negative thing on any of the companies that I've worked for before. That's just a natural thing. But being liberated from that is pretty rewarding, and I'm pretty happy to be doing what I'm doing now. I was offered another corporate gig not long ago. For those of you who follow me on social media, I did talk about it a little bit on my social media. And I turned it down, and I'm very glad that I did. And I'm very lucky to have an incredibly supportive spouse that is cool with me doing stuff like that. Prince4321 writes, will you do a God of War 4 game review? Looks good. I don't really do game reviews. I'll do game cutscene movie reviews, and I'll check it out once it comes out. Bomb Squad writes, pick Nolan directed MCU film or Russo directed DCU film. I will take a Russo directed DCU film. Not because I think the Russos are better directors than Christopher Nolan, of course not. But the DCU needs it more. They need it more. Nolan would just go in and do yet ho-hum another great Marvel film. But the Russos maybe could do something pretty special in the DCU if they were given the freedom to do it. Something pretty special could happen. Okay, Trojan, where'd it go? Trojan of Narnia writes, do you think the next Star Wars animated show will be about Luke and his new Jedi Order in between 7 and 8? Maybe have Mara Jade in it? Would you want that? I know that it's not going to be about that. And no, I wouldn't be interested in it, to be honest, personally. I mean, don't get me wrong. Of course, if they put... It's much like the Han Solo movie. I was not asking for them to make a Han Solo movie as a fan. But they made it, so I will check it out, for sure. And I'll be excited to check it out. If they had asked me, I would have said, no, I don't want it. I'm not interested in them making that particular show you're describing, but of course it's a Star Wars show and it's Luke Skywalker. So of course I would check it out and maybe love it. Who knows? But in advance, if you're asking me, no, not something I really would be all that interested in to start with. Chris Martin writes, I absolutely love Man of Steel. I want a sequel now. Well, I mean, I've been screaming from the hilltops for a Man of Steel sequel. and we didn't get it. And I gotta be very careful. I was sitting down and talking with somebody very plugged into the Warner Brothers system. And I heard some stories that I had never heard before about what was supposed to be Man of Steel 2. I will not share the stories. All I'll say is that it was stuff I had never even heard before. And it was like, wow. And anyway, but yes, you know me. I love Man of Steel. It's in my top 10 comic book films of all time. I want them to do a sequel badly. Adamus95 writes, showed my girlfriend District 9 for the first time and she loved it, but hates that Chartol's character didn't get cured. Will we get a sequel eventually? Nah, it's too late. I mean, look, I would have loved a sequel to District 9. Would have absolutely loved it, but the opportunity is come and gone. It's far too past. It's far too past. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying I don't think they'll ever do it. But if they did it, I'd be excited. Because I also thought it was a perfect ending to the movie that also left a perfect open door for a plot for a sequel. But for some reason, they didn't pursue it. I mean, I thought it was a no-brainer. That's one you should have done. Instead, what we got was the crappy Elysium and the crappy Chappie. It was Chappie, right? That's the name of it? Yeah. I would have loved for them to do it. I just don't think they would do it anymore, which is really too bad because I love that movie. I think District 9 is fantastic. Let's see. Patrick Conway writes, underrated Civil War scene. Me, it's Tony and Clint's argument in prison. Great acting from both. You can see how hurt and betrayed both as friends. Mine is a scene that's similar to that. Obviously, the best scene is the airport battle scene, sure. But the scene when Tony gets brought in, Cap gets brought in, and then Tony and him are in like the control room, and there's talking, and Captain America's like this close to signing the Sokovia Accords. Tony breaks out the pens and all that kind of stuff, and then they start talking about Scarlet Witch. And Cap finds out that Tony locked up, like put her under house arrest, in essentially, and that flipped the Cap's switch. That whole scene is beautifully acted. One of the best purely acted scenes I think in all of the MCU is that scene, and I love that scene. To me, that scene needs to get more love. Okay, Chris Martin writes, can you describe the D23 footage of Lion King from Jon Favreau? I can't wait for his take. Sorry, I'm extremely excited. Thoughts when we might get a first trailer? I didn't see it. I don't think there was a D23 this year. Was it at D23? Where did they show the footage? I can't. They did show some Lion King footage. Maybe it was D23. Maybe it was something else. Or was it New York Comic Con? Whatever. They showed some footage somewhere. I never saw it. I have not seen the footage. But I know what Jon Favreau did with the Jungle Book. So I can only imagine what he's going to do with Lion King. And I am with you, Chris. I am so excited about this film. It just defies belief. And the fact that they got James Earl Jones doing the voice of Mufasa again is just kind of brilliant. I love it. Chris also writes, have you heard of Peter Cetera, former frontman of the band Chicago? We did it all for the glory of love. Yep, I know Peter Cetera. Let's see. Chris Martin writes, do you have a favorite episode you did of AMC / Collider Movie Talk? Favorite Schmoes No Show episode? Favorite single episode? I mean, there was that one special that we did when we had Kevin Feige, James Gunn, and Chris Pratt. This was before Guardians of the Galaxy came out. And we did that special video one night. It wasn't a movie talk episode per se, but I mean, that was great. Having at my table, in my studio, James Gunn, who I'm a huge admirer of, Kevin Feige, obviously who I'm a huge admirer of, and Chris Pratt, who I just love him from Parks and Rec, all on my set. That was a really, really special video. That was a really special episode that we did that will stick with me for my whole career. One of my favorite things I ever did in my career. Devontae Brown writes, John, you forgot to add my super chat from the other show. I did not see it, but I said I'm tired of the Hollywood hypocrisy. Might turn to reading now. Devontae, What do you mean by Hollywood hypocrisy? What? I have no idea what you're talking about. Hypocrisy in what? I have no idea what you're talking about, so I can't comment on it. But I'm sorry I missed it. I do not see it, so I'm sorry that I missed it. Adam K writes, what actors should try doing a musical? Joseph Gordon-Levitt. As a matter of fact, I thought I heard he might be shooting a musical right now. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like, he's done videos on YouTube of him doing music stuff. He's a singer and dancer as well. Joseph Gordon-Levitt should do a musical, I think. Chris Martin writes, did you like Robin Williams' movie RV? I always call it We're the Millers without the pot. Also, do you like We're the Millers? I'm not going to say love, but I really, really liked We're the Millers. I thought that was really funny. I enjoyed that a lot. Was not a fan of RV, to be honest with you. I wish I was, but I was not a fan of RV. But We're the Millers is actually an underrated comedy. More people need to see that because it's pretty damn funny. Cobra writes, if Superman is in Shazam, will they have him to make Shazam look good like they did in Supergirl? Oh, they better not. They better not. So, first of all, I don't think Superman's going to be in Shazam. I've heard some reports that maybe he is, but I doubt it. Could be wrong. I mean, I don't know that for a fact. I just don't think he will be. But if they did put him in there and just put him in there so Shazam could beat him at something, I'd be pissed. You don't job Superman. All right? You don't job Wonder Woman and you don't job Batman. You do not job those three characters. Job anybody else you want. You don't job those three characters, which is one of the reasons why I'm just fundamentally opposed to Supergirl, the TV show now. Devontae writes, sorry for the spelling error, meant hypocrisy. Hey, it's internet typing, man. We're just rushing to get don't worry about spelling errors, dude. You're good, Devontae, I promise you. Chris Martin writes, John, I would love to see Thrawn in a Star Wars film. It would be awesome. Can you think of a way they can do it? Not really. I mean, I love the Thrawn character, but they've been so inconsistent with him. We talked about this on Star Wars Talk Tuesday the other day. They've been so inconsistent with the Thrawn character between the novel Thrawn, which he's one kind of a person, and then what we see in Rebels, which is another type of a person. I just don't see a way you do it. I really don't. So I'd be for it if you can find the right way to tell the story, but I just can't think of a story that would be something I'd be interested in that would... to me, here's the thing. You start with a great story, and then your characters inhabit it. You don't say, I want this character in a movie. Let's make a movie so this character can be in it. That's kind of backwards thinking. That's how you make bad movies. But, I'd be thrilled, if I went into some Star Wars movie and Grand Admiral Thrawn comes on. I would love it. But, I mean, it has to be the right movie, right circumstance. I can't think of a film or a story off the top of my head that it would actually fit or work, though. Anthony C. writes, was it tough to get your novel published? No, I just self-published, man. I just wrote it myself and did my own distribution through Amazon. So, I mean, that's one of the great things today. You don't have to have a publisher. Don't get me wrong. Having a publisher has huge advantages. It does. Some disadvantages too, but huge advantages. It's also very difficult. But the way today works, man, you don't need a publisher. You can just sell it on Amazon. And through Amazon, sell it through other markets as well. And I did it that way, and it was actually quite easy. The hard part is writing the book. That was way harder than I thought it would be. I have an admiration now for novel writers that I never had before. Like, yeah, of course, people write great novels. That's awesome. But now I understand how hard it is. And now I have, for people who can actually do it well, huge admiration. Huge admiration for novel writers. All right. Chris writes in, have you heard of the Angry Grandpa on YouTube? Unfortunately, he passed away last month. He was hilarious. He was so funny. His son would set up situations to make him angry. It was pretty funny most of the time. I have not heard of the Angry Grandpa. I'm really sorry to hear that he passed away. That's one of the great things about YouTube, man. There's so many great personalities out there, but that just sounds hilarious. The Angry Band. It reminds me a lot of, remember there was that book, Shit My Dad Would Say? It's a hilarious book. It's all a book that this writer just wrote down of actual stories and actual quotes from his dad. And it's some of the funniest stuff I've ever read. You should check that out. It sounds like the Angry Grandpa would be along those lines. Thanks for bringing it to my attention, Chris. I really appreciate that. Now it's on everybody's radar. Chris Martin writes, favorite sights to see in Canada. I went to Canada on a field trip in 7th grade. Unfortunately, we only got to see Medieval Times, Niagara Falls. Okay. You didn't take a field trip to Canada. You took a field trip to Niagara Falls, which, yes, is in Canada, but you did not see Canada. Canada is like twice the size of America, okay? It's a huge place. Niagara Falls is definitely a great thing to see. Downtown Toronto at the CN Tower is go up the CN Tower is one of the great things to do. Seeing Lake St. Louise and Banff, more in Western Canada, going to the shorelines in British Columbia are just breathtaking. So much of Manitoba is gorgeous. Going out further to the East Coast, you go to the red sand shores of Prince Edward Island. Dude, there's so many great places to see in Canada. Just so many great places to see. But Niagara Falls is one of them for sure. But so much more. So much more. Timothy West writes, weird there's no Beatles biopic yet. Maybe Scorsese or Spielberg could do one, or any good director. I have a feeling that's not because, and again, I don't know this. I have a feeling that the reason there hasn't been a Beatles biopic yet is not because there hasn't been a filmmaker or a studio interested in making one. I think it's probably a rights issue. That maybe whoever has the rights to that particular story, whether it's, you know, Paul and Ringo, the surviving members, or the family estate of John Lennon or whatever, I got a feeling that's where the holdup is. There will probably be many studios that would line up to produce a biopic of the Beatles if they had the rights to do so. I have a feeling it's just a rights issue. I don't know that for certain, but that's the way it strikes me because, yeah, I mean, of course, which studio wouldn't want to make a biopic about the Beatles? Of course they would, absolutely. Chris Martin writes, are you a fan of Kick-Ass 2? I liked it more than the first one. I like Kick-Ass 2, but to me, it was pretty inferior to the first one. And I often say this. To me, there was a Big Daddy-shaped hole in its heart. So you get to the heart of Kick-Ass, and to me, in Kick-Ass 2, there's a Big Daddy hole shaped in its heart. That movie, although I always lobby against fake deaths, they needed to bring Big Daddy. They needed to find a way to bring Big Daddy back for that. Big Daddy was such an integral part of the DNA of what made Kick-Ass so great that they didn't replace that in Kick-Ass 2. They just did Kick-Ass again with all the same notes and beats, just without Big Daddy and the dimensions and the notes and beats that he brought. And to me, it felt a lot thinner. Now, you liked it more. That's great. I'm sure there are other people who like number 2 more, but I'm just saying for me, I really felt the absence of Big Daddy in it. Not that Big Daddy was the most important character, but it's just those particular notes and beats and dimensions that character brought to the film. Just, it's like having a mixture and just putting a few drops of vanilla in it, right? The vanilla's not the most important thing, but you suddenly make that same mixture without those few drops of vanilla, you can totally taste something is different now. It just feels off. And that's what I felt like for Kick-Ass 2. And final question of the day, as we wrap things up here, Chris Martin writes, favorite musical piece from Hook? Mine is the sword fight. Probably the whole food fight thing. Bangarang, man. I mean, that whole food fight thing, it was whimsical, it was playful, and it felt like music that got right to the heart of the scene. And that's what music scores really, really work for me, is when they feel like they are just a part of the DNA of the scene itself. And the music that was playing over that food fight, to me, was just perfect. Just perfect for the scene. And I get goosebumps even when I think about it now. All right, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Open Mic Show. Thank you so much for being a part of it here, guys, as we just talk movies on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So, of course, Open Mic will be back again tomorrow. And hey, guys, listen, if you want to send in a video of yourself asking a question, it's real simple. Just email it to me at john@thejohncampeashow.com and put the words Open Mic in the subject line. Don't send me written questions, okay? Do not send written questions to Open Mic. Just videos and audio. If you're a little camera shy and you want to do an MP3 instead, go ahead and send me an MP3 and just send it on into me, and I'll pick out a couple to use on the show tomorrow as well. Then, of course, Friday, we've got the Weekly Hero, where we're going to talk about all the stuff going on in the world of comic book movies this past week. Obviously, Deadpool 2 trailer dropping is going to be one of the big topics. So we'll be back again tomorrow, and I, of course, will be back back again first thing in the morning for the John Campea Show, 8 a.m. East Coast time. That's 8 a.m. West Coast time. That's Let me try that again. The John Campea Show. Every day. 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Los Angeles time, 11 a.m. New York time. Did I get through at that time? Yes, I did. Make sure you guys click the thumbs up button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel, follow me on social media simply at John Campea. Consider becoming one of my Patreon supporters. If you like my videos, head on over to patreon.com/John Campea. Find out all the information you need about what it means to be a Patreon supporter, how being a Patreon supporter makes these shows possible, and what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter as well. That will do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for joining me and making my day a little bit better by talking about movies and all this types of stuff. I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate the conversations we get to have. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.